I got to the end of that episode and my mouth dropped. Hello uglies, welcome back. We are in episode 8, which is kind of crazy. I feel like these episodes are flying by. This is the Frankenhooker review for Boulet Brothers Dragula season 666. I gotta say first off, I was not expecting Pi to go home. I was sure that it was gonna be Auntie because of the two of them. Auntie's already been in the bottom, Pi makes good TV, Pi has good friction in the workroom, but I guess so does Auntie. There must have been something we didn't see. Maybe Pi tapped out before Auntie did in that challenge, because to me, I cannot fathom how Pi did not make it through considering their track record all season. Plus, I don't think that Auntie's been really going outside of the box week to week to week. So last week, I talked about how I was sure that there was going to be some type of resurrection because this series has been focusing a lot on magic. Spellcasting, there's been necromancy referenced, plus it's Dragula 666, which Antichrist, resurrection, I was sure that it was happening, and it didn't, and I was kind of bummed. Even the top of the episode this week, it showed Swan holding on to a head, talking about how they weren't sure if they wanted to bring them back or not. So I thought, okay, this is it. It's happening. This season has really been pushing boundaries of what Dragula is and what it could be, and this seemed like the perfect season to bring someone back. It didn't happen. I was shocked. I also completely inaccurately predicted that this was gonna be a sci-fi challenge. I suppose in some sense, Frankenstein's monster does kind of fall in the sci-fi horror genre. But since this is Frankenhooker, it was completely different. I did a little bit of research beforehand about this movie. It's buck wild, but I kind of need to watch it now, I think, based off how crazy the synopsis was, because this is nuts. The big storyline is about Yuri, and it has been for a couple weeks, how they're sort of on a coastline that is bringing them to an inevitable crash. That also didn't happen this week. We ended up getting a complete 180 for Yuri as they snatched the win. And not only was I gagged, but so were the Boulets. And now after having done some research on this film, I understand a little more of why Yuri won the challenge, because she really did bang it out. This was very producer tea, in my opinion. Normally, when you keep teasing a story, there's gotta be some type of payout. So this has been teed up for a couple episodes now, where Yuri keeps saying, I've got fire, I've got fight, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it, and the girl's just not seeing it, and now it's finally happened. This was really good storytelling and a great arc for Yuri, which means that Yuri is probably going home next week. We're going into top 4, and I just don't see a world where Yuri beats out Asia or Auntie. I just don't.
Sorry to this man.
Auntie was coming for yet another contestant, this time for Asia, saying that she hasn't been standing out, which is crazy talk for someone who just did their exact silhouette, exact makeup, exact hair, exact normal costuming just in blue last week. And also whose only extermination challenge was a lip sync. And they're all lip sync artists. I'm not saying that lip syncing is not hard because I used to do drag. I know that it's difficult. But it wasn't even that good of a lip sync. Kind of audacious. Just as difficult, my ass. The main challenge is Frankenhooker, and unfortunately, due to kind of the grotesque nature of this challenge, I don't think I can show y'all any of these looks as I normally would up here. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it. If you've already seen it and you really need visual stimulation, we're gonna imagine. The Fright Feet is an electrical chair trivia challenge. It was so nice to see Cynthia back. She looked great in purple. And I love the way that she came in yelling, Cynthia, she's a really good dancer. And I've always hoped that she would reference that. She's always referenced Scream Queens, which is a great franchise to pull quotes from, but to reference her actual character, because I'm pretty sure that her name is based off of Cynthia the doll from Rugrats, to pull out that random deep cut episode. And I just want to give her praise for pulling that out. When we get to the trivia challenge, I'm gonna be so real, I didn't know half of these. And I've watched every season of Dragula. I think something like this would work really well in Drag Race because a lot of those quotes are just so iconic and overused and memed. Maybe there's an entire subset of alt drag fans that are on the internet that I just don't interact with. And maybe they're quoting all of these and I've just never seen them. Like I obviously knew like fuck the big picture Clint. I don't fuck my brother, he fucks me. Like I knew those ones. But some of these other quotes, I legitimately just sat there, mouth open, We Shot music playing, thinking, where did these come from? I had no clue, but you can tell that Asia is a super fan because she knew almost all the questions, even just putting her hand up and mouthing them. So when Auntie said that she got all the easy questions, my first thought was, this girl could have won every single one of y'all's questions. Easy. Auntie really was going for it this week, and I worry maybe that's why she was pushed through, because maybe she's just got that delusional Alexis Michelle energy that pushes her to the end and is really just there to cause tension, theater kids. And then gets really audacious and dramatic about Pi not wanting to be in an alliance, doing that full boomer thing where they say, do you want to go to the movies with me? And you've already got plans. And they say, no, fine, it's fine. I didn't want to go to the movies anyway. I just wanted to spend some time with you, but it's fine. We don't have to do it if you're too busy for me. Grandma, calm down. Calm down. That was just too much for me. Hashtag team too much. Because Asia won the fright feat, she did get to curse someone with baldness. This is a f***ed up curse because they couldn't use it until the day of getting ready. I was gagged that she used it on herself. She turned it out, and I think that the look really succeeded because it didn't have a wig, but I would have given that to a real contender. I would have tried to have knocked out someone who I perceived as being weaker, and I understand Asia doesn't want to cause any problems. She feels like she's gotten really close to everybody. She opened up to Auntie about a big part of her journey as a drag performer and trusting other drag performers, and that really broke my heart to hear that story. So I understand why she didn't want to curse Auntie, even though Auntie would be the one to go. Thankfully, Auntie sniped herself out and brought herself to the bottom anyway, so that curse wouldn't have done anything. But maybe if someone else didn't have their headpiece or their wig, maybe they would have been in the bottom instead of Pi. I don't know. So again, I can't really show any of these looks, but we're gonna imagine them. We're gonna use the power of imagination. Yuri's look really slayed. I thought it looked like a sex doll. It even had those big exaggerated lips. And I think for the challenge, that definitely reinterpreted the idea of Frankenhooker. I liked the costuming, I liked the bodysuit. They legitimately looked like they had been stitched together. Plus their performance was eye-catching. I could not stop looking at Yuri. They were the only ones that I was watching during the group shots because they just had that camera presence. Really quick, cutting to the end of the episode, they're all asked who should go home, and Yuri can't pick someone and is getting really Trinity K. Bonet in the All-Star 6 talent show. Very that tea. And I almost can't help but feel like Yuri knows. I've been on a TV show with a toxic iPad kid fandom who are addicted to being angry at things. I don't know how I'm going to be perceived when I come off of this show, so if I say someone, I could potentially get targeted online, and I've already dealt with that, and I don't want to deal with that. I can't help feel like that's the reason why she didn't say somebody's name. So I empathized and didn't feel bad that the Boulets were trying really hard to get that answer out of her. I would have been a little trepidatious as well. Just, I don't know if I want to deal with whatever comes from opening up this can of worms. Anyway, look was solid, and I also really enjoyed the 80s aesthetic of this entire music video and performance, even down to the beats. I loved that synth beat that they had. Pi I thought looked interesting, but a lot of the Boulets' critiques were very in line with what I thought. It looked a little too cartoony, and I thought the no loads were fused with the hash marks on the back, counting down all the loads. I thought that was fun, but it read more Tumblr comic strip than it read Dragula monster. Next out is Gray, who I was actually really surprised to see do something a little more femme. And now that I've actually researched this movie and I understand better, the plot line of Frankenhooker is that at the very end of the movie, the husband's head is stuck on a female body because the machine only works on female bodies. So this look was very much what that was. Gray's masculine paint and more masculine featured head on a super femme body was really hot. I was impressed to see Gray pull out something that was a little more feminine in the body shape and in the silhouette. And in my opinion, Gray is the winner. I think 100% Gray is gonna win this whole thing. I thought it was gonna be Asia, but over the last 2 weeks, I'm now thinking it's Gray. Auntie looked a little bit like if Herman Munster decided to get an Elvira drag for Halloween. I think it had a similar effect to what Gray was doing, but less effective because it looked a little too cartoony to me. I loved the boots and I loved the outfit. I liked the bodysuit. I thought that head was a little too literal. Just all of it felt slightly contrived to me. And I don't know if My negative feelings towards a lot of Auntie's looks lately have been because I'm not liking her TV energy, and I'm not liking the character that she's playing on this show. I'm not enjoying the friction that she's causing, or if I genuinely don't like the looks. I think maybe in like a year when I rewatch this season, maybe I'll be like, oh my god, I love Auntie. I love her look, slay. But right now I'm just really not feeling what she's presenting. And the Boulets didn't like it either. I appreciated the consistency of saying these two looks were very cartoony, and that was not the assignment. Auntie's performance was also really weak, didn't know a lot of those words, and it was very, I'm old, all over again. Asia looked incredible, although, point of contention, I was getting a little more Resident Evil than I was getting Frankenhooker. I loved the exposed brain. I loved all the body parts that were all over it. I liked taking the idea of this body horror and shifting it even more into filth, using pig bodies and pig heads to reconstruct this zombie hooker body. Oh, that was so cool. I enjoy how Asia's brain works in turning every challenge into every pillar of Dragula being represented. I think that's incredible. I did think there was just a slight disconnect from the challenge concept to where Asia took it, but I don't think it was bad. It was just very it was very safe. So I'm curious what is going to happen to this girl next week. I know that Matthew Cody is supposed to be a guest judge, and the Boulets are getting a skin in Dead by Daylight, a game that I am very heavily invested in my personal life and in my Twitch streaming life, and I know that that's coming up next week. In the beginning of this season, you can go back and watch my Meet the Ghouls reaction at the very beginning, and I remember specifically mentioning that I thought that Asia's look looked like something that would be worn by Trickster. It's almost giving Trickster from Dead by Daylight, and so I can't help but feel like Asia might knock it out of the park. Our bottom two is Auntie and Pai. I appreciated the consistency of putting the two looks in the bottom that were very similar, a little too cartoony, and I just don't quite understand why, if you hear Sexy Sex Worker Monster Challenge, why you would think I'm going to take this to a cartoon place. Last week was the time to play with cartoon silhouettes, cartoon looks, because it was D&D. So you want to go a little more fantastical. This was the week to really hammer in, be gross, be sexy, be monstrous. Translate what your drag character would look like in the parameters of monstrous sex worker on the loose to kill people. And I don't think the two of them did that, so rightfully the two of them were in the bottom and had to be frozen. This honestly seemed awful. The wind machine they had in there blowing water particles at them that are going to stick to their face and freeze. If you've ever worked in food service, you likely have had a mental breakdown in the walk-in freezer, right next to the Ben & Jerry's ice cream, between the frozen chicken nuggets. And you know that when you cry in a walk-in freezer and those tears come down your cheek and immediately start freezing before they hit your jawbone, and you come out picking little ice chips off of your face? That sounds awful to be experiencing in real time like this, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it. So if Pai tapped out midway through, I wouldn't have even blamed them. But super gagged that Pai was out. I was fully expecting Auntie to get eliminated and top four to be Pai, Yuri, Asia, and Gray. And then probably next week, Yuri getting the boot. I imagine that it'll be a one person wins, everyone else is up for extermination, similar to what they did last season. Big group activity and then one of them will be knocked out. My initial thoughts are that it's going to be Asia and Gray fully as top two of the entire season. There's no way that they're not. They've had way too good of a trajectory all season. I think the very clear bottom two are going to be Yuri and Auntie. And I can't help but feel like maybe Yuri could pull something out. And I just feel like Yuri is that unexpected wild card. The Boulets love to have one of those every season. Someone who could win. But also, Auntie is really emblematic of that theater kid, larger than life, sort of incendiary character that they like to get in the finale. I don't know who to expect is going to land in the bottom next week. It is certainly going to be a Dead by Daylight challenge. There's 4 contestants left. I assume that they'll probably have all 4 of them play some type of survivor role and have it be like an activity challenge. And then maybe for the floor show, they have to present a monster. Because I also know that whoever wins is going to be getting a cosmetic in the game, and I am fully planning on getting that and the boulets. So we'll see what happens next week, but what were your thoughts in the comments below? Let me know. And I will see y'all on the flip. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe. Goodbye.